but that's too heavy-handed on the equipment that goes below that. It's hard to get an exact. I'm having a hard time getting the exact spot I want. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things where you're kind of right there in the middle of which way you want to go. I opted on mine to cut the low at 80 and then cut the high here. Normally here when I'm in here with you at about 3450, 3500, somewhere around there. I think right now I'm at 3450. And that seemed to work out. That's where I found mine, at least, to be kind of the best between, the guys that were listening at 100 hertz above and the guys that were opened up on the bottom end, down 50 or 60. That to me, that seemed like it was kind of the middle point. I don't know if you've tried anywhere around there on the low side.
No, my cut's a little bit lower, but I drop my lows when I get up near about 160. I drop them down to 250. That range, 160 to 250. I bring them down probably 5 dB, and that relaxes it a little bit. I wanted a slight, it's not a thump, but a push at the bottom, 60 hertz. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I run 2 dB at 63, and then I cut 5 dB at 125 and 8 dB at 250.
Okay, we're kind of doing the same thing. And depending on the instrument, those dBs are relative, kind of. They're not exactly dBs, so our numbers are generally almost the same in many ways.
Yeah, it's a guesstimate at that point,
Yeah, I listen to it more than pay attention to the numbers. I know the numbers should be lower at 250, and lowered at 160 and up to 250. It should be lower. How much exactly? I usually just listen on a receiver on the internet, which I've got hooked up right now. And I wouldn't mind hearing your stream. So let me go over to my. Are you streaming right now?
Yeah, it's streaming now. You're good to go. Just remember that you got that delay in there.
Oh yeah, I know. Let me put YouTube in on it. There it is. Let me click into that. Yeah, I'm gonna put my headphones on. Just hanging to the side for a minute.
Yeah, and don't get all confused with that. That delay in there. Make you stutter, make you think you've been on the medication for a while or something.
Okay, 1 2 testing 1 2. Oh, I can handle that. That'll work for me.
Yeah, now look, I'm cut at 56 on the bottom, and well, here, let me bring it up. Let's just bring it up to 4K at the top. So there we go, close enough. So around 50 to 46, or to 4K on the top, John. That should give you enough bandwidth to get what you're listening for, I think.
Okay, I'm testing it now, so you hang back while I listen. And very good. Maybe I want. Let me see. 1 2 3. That's a pretty good reception you're getting. Okay. Okay, yeah. I'm going to listen again in a minute, but I may even sharpen the highs a hair.
If it was me, I would. Now my receive is flat or darn close to it, so that should give you a real good idea.
Yeah, I'm going to reduce a certain value that should brighten up the highs a little bit. Just give me a moment. Now I'm going to listen to it on the. Okay, that's a little bit brighter, not a ton. Okay, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, that sounds good there, buddy.
Yeah, I reduced. I have a interesting machine here, and it is a six-band processor that they used to use in studios about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Made by Behringer. It used to cost like $2,500. I got it for $100. Six-band processor. And what I did was reduce. I only had compression on the highs. I wanted to soften them a little bit, and I softened them too much. So I reduced the compression about 14 dB on the three top bands. In other words, from about 1,000 to 3,500 hertz, all those had a little compression on them. And I dropped them, Rick. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just opened up the pan adapter, just widened it out some more so you can look at it too. It's a lot more even across there now as well.
Okay, let me take a look there. I'll know when I come on. There I am. Wow, yeah, you're right. And I'm getting some push, a little bit of a push above 2.2K or so, 2.4K. Go ahead.
Yeah, it looks pretty damn good actually.
Okay, we cleaned it up a little bit. Thank you very much.
No problem, John. No problem at all.
It is not the easiest thing to do to get a kind of a shape the sound where it's balanced, and acceptable by a wide range of people. It's not the easiest thing to do when you're playing with a box.
No, it's not, because everybody hears differently and everybody has a different preference. But I think for the overall general listener, you've pretty well nailed it there.
Yeah, and I'm going to save it. Store it. 1, 2, 3. That's saved. And let me look at the picture. Yeah, I reduced the compression quite a bit, which is good. It's a different kind of compression. A basic universal compressor can be a little abusive. A six-band compressor, you can focus just in certain areas of the passband where things are a little bit harsh and soften it a touch. That's how I use them.
Yeah, similar to what like the Optimods do with the band compression.
That's correct. That's right. And from there, it goes into a 421 Symmetrics brand, 421M, which is basically, it has a really nice downward expander. I don't use much of that. An AGC end leveler and an output limiter. And that's it. And then I go right into the rig.
Yeah. I'm going to have to add some rack gear back in here at some point. But I think for the most part, for this thing just being, the microphone being jacked into the back of the rig, I think it does pretty well. But I do miss some of the hardware.
Yeah, but I don't like to go too far. I know people that have 5 or 6 pieces. I picked the two I thought would get the most done, most controllability, and the total expense was nothing. An IHY system costs $700 if you buy them new, 650 to 700. I spent 100 on the 6-band processor and 75 on the other piece, the AGC limiter, and so it's 175, and it goes into the rig.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you have a lot more control than you do with the WHY as well.
Oh yeah, it was a professional piece, very professional, used in broadcast, in the less expensive stations. Probably more commonly in the Class C AM stations and whatnot. The stations that make a lot of money use Or-band equipment.
Yeah, and you're talking a huge difference in price.
Yeah, and they may not do a lot more for me, really, in this operation in ham radio. So, I went with the Behringer 9024. You could look that up, and you would see what it does. It's a dual 24-bit processing station.
Yeah, I'll look that up here a little bit later on. I'll look that one up. When I ran the external stuff, I ran I had most of it was Behringer, the MIC 200 for the mic preamp, and the tube, the phantom voltage for the mic. Then that was back when I was running the condenser, which I found out I didn't particularly care for the condenser here, just because of the traffic in the house of people running around and then having that car wash across the street. It was just too damn sensitive. Great mics, but they're just too sensitive for an application like that where you've got a lot of background noise. And then I ran the 2496, and I can't remember why. There was another piece I had as well. Then I had that back into the 3000 in the early days, and then I started getting RF issues from that broadcast station across the road, getting into some of that hardware. So I got rid of the hardware, and I went to DAW, which I could easily put back in this, just doing the digital audio stuff, and that seemed to work really well. And that was fairly cheap because a lot of the VSTs that I was using were free. I think I only had one of them that I paid for. And that was a compressor, and I think it was like $58. But the most of it, all the rest of the VSTs were free, and I had a few of them stacked on top of one another. That's kind of a neat thing to do too, because you can get into doing a whole lot of stuff really inexpensively.
Yeah, I've done DAW, and I got out of it because occasionally I would get a problem. It was a little more complex a system. It was Pro Tools and Melda plugins. And I made a couple moves that I couldn't retract. And I was off the air for a couple days, and it pissed me off. Fixing the software, I made like 2 clicks, and I created a problem that took 3 hours to get rid of. And I was like, come on. I mean, I like to get on every day. And I ran into other problems over time. And the other thing was latency. These were relatively comprehensive software pieces. And there was a latency. So I would have to delay taking my foot off the pedal so that the rest of the transmission would make it out. It would be like a half a second or quarter second, which adds up, Go ahead.
Yeah, well, anytime you add stuff like that, you're going to add latency to it, and you've already got latency with the SDR to begin with. There's a little bit there. So you stack those on top of one another, and It can get tricky. I ran into the same issue earlier on, but then when I went over to the Focusrite FireWire interface, that solved a lot of my latency with that. My latency was a few milliseconds. It wasn't bad. I think I had more latency in the rig than I did in the DAW.
Yeah, the DAW system was my problem. I was using a UR22, so it was a good Steinberg audio interface, but the software itself takes time to process. It was very comprehensive, and it cost a little money. Basically, for several reasons, I said, let's just go back to simplicity of hardware. And I also got rid of my really good condenser mic because it picked up everything. It is so true what you said. Carol would burp upstairs. I'd see the watt meter jump a little bit. The dog barks, the watt meter jumps. And they're all upstairs, She's walking around, you hear it. And I went back to a dynamic mic. I went back to I'm on an Electro Voice, and I'm a happier man for it. The noise floor is lower too. It's an RE320, and I may have lost a few percent points, maybe 3 or 4. But it's not heard by most people at all. You'd have to be a high-end mix master, a sound engineer to have noticed the difference. And it made my life a lot easier. K2YN.
N8 SDR. Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, I've heard some guys running some condensers and they sound really good, but if they work extremely well if you get them in an isolated room where you don't have a lot of, like I said, background noise. You get any background noise, and man, it's going to kill you with most of the condensers, especially the good condensers. They just have so much gain to them, and I would hear that the car lot or the car wash across the road here. When your time's running down and it's time to, stick more coins in there, they have this beeping sound. And you could have the windows closed in the house. And when it would start, you could actually see the thing on the damn display. I mean, you could watch it, just picking that up.
Yeah. In my case, when the guy mows the lawn, I'm practically off the air, and then he gets the blower. That's what kills me. I'm near the garage. When he's blowing the driveway clean near the garage, man, I'm off the air.
Yeah. Is that AC hum or is that a mower in the background?
Well, man, and then you hear him when he blows against the door. The air blows the garage door and makes it vibrate and jump around. And I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah, and forget about trying to sneak out a fart, right?
Well, while you're transmitting, the best trick is just to ask a quick question and send it over to the other side.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could be going into a dialogue. That's hilarious. Well, and the antenna I wanted to put up was, and it comes on, you go, well, Bob, aren't you putting up an antenna? And they come back, while you let one fly. Oh, boy. Are we crude or what?
Yeah, some of those mics are really hot. I'm trying to remember the one I used. It's made by, it was a Sterling. A Sterling Audio. and it's a guy up in Canada makes them. They're a pretty nice condenser. They're used in quite a few of the recording studios, and that thing was just super damn sensitive.
Well, I was using a Neumann U87 cartridge in an aftermarket aftermarket electronics and housing, the shell, but the pill was supposed to be the same as the U87, and brother, boy, if it was out there, if it was anywhere within 50, 100 feet of me, we could hear it.
Yeah, it's the same way that one was. That is one thing I like about this mic, the 781, is it's a direct fire, so you've got to be right in front of the thing, or it drops off pretty quick.
It's acceptable. I listen to it and go, that's okay. And that's all I really wanted from ham radio. You know, ham radio for me is supposed to be fun. It shouldn't get so intense that you go to bed with your guts in a knot.
Right, yeah. Then you're taking all the fun out of it, and it becomes a completely different thing then. And I doubled with you on the first part of that. When I let go, you were there. I said that is one thing I like about this mic that I'm using now, is it being a direct fire, so you've got to be right in front of it. When you get off to the sides of it, it drops off really quick.
Yeah, end fire, I think they call that.
Yeah, end fire, direct fire. You got to be head on it.
Yeah, let me try something here. I'm going to go off to the side. I'll only be 4 inches from the mic. I'm 4 inches from the mic now, and we're talking off the left side, and now I'm going to come back and come into the front, and now we're in the front. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, and if you were still listening, you would have heard it. You get that hollowy kind of sound to it on the side.
Yeah, and it drops down. I watched it on the pan adapter. It drops off. That's what I wanted. I talk straight in the mic, and that's the way that works. And Carol can be cooking upstairs and drop a pot on the floor, and it don't matter.
Nope, not unless she throws it down the stairs, right?
Ouch! Okay, Carol, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the same way this one is. Like I'm right in front of it now, and okay, now I'm going off. I'm off to the left side of it right now, and it should drop down. It should drop down pretty good amount, and coming back across the front of it, it should come back up.
Yeah, it did. Dropped off like 20 dB at least. Oh, well, you know, if I got my butt into gear, I might put the balance feed line in today through the house. The only reason I delay is I have to get down on the ground and drill a hole through the closet wall from under the house in the crawl space. And I keep saying, well, maybe tomorrow I'll do it. But if I would just get it done, I know that I would have, the rest of the day would be peaking.
Yeah, I keep telling myself I need to go out, pull a bunch of aluminum out of the shed, and build a Moxon for 10 meters, or or maybe a 2-element directional, maybe a twin-phased array for 10 meters. But I just can't bring myself to do it. I mean, it was, I heard you say it was 70 there, or going to be 70 there today. It's the high here, well, right now it's like 40, 45 or 46. And I think the high is supposed to be 52 or 51. I just can't bring myself to do it yet. And what sucks is 3 days ago it was 87 degrees here.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't have an excuse here because it is going to be about 73 today.
Yeah, that's pretty much ideal weather to be outside and working with, because you don't you don't get that sweat effect, and you stay cool. That keeps you going.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't have an excuse. I don't have an excuse. I have good weather for this, sunny, everything. I don't work on antennas on the weekend, Rick, because basically I don't like to share my hobby with the neighborhood, and they're all home from work. I do my work. I'm retired. I do my work like Tuesday. Tuesday or Wednesday is my preference.
Yeah, I find myself doing the same thing for the most part. If I don't have a lot of stuff going on in the afternoons, early afternoons, if the workload's kind of light, or I've don't have any calls to go out and have to do, I try to squeeze that antenna stuff in during the week as well. I've done some stuff on the weekends, but like you, if I can avoid it and do it during the week when there's less activity in the neighborhood, it just seems to be better.
Yeah, I don't like curiosity. Somebody sees my air cannon. I tell you, it looks like I'm shooting a land-to-air at an airplane. These people will want, what are you doing up there? I go, it's a weather instrument.
Hey, I'm launching weather balloons.
Yeah, anything. I don't want to tell them I'm putting up an antenna. No. Nobody knows I'm here. Now, they will when I put up the tower, but not very many. It'll have to be word of mouth, because I'm surrounded by tall trees. It'll be almost stealth, the tower. And just one neighbor, my neighbor off to the, as you face my house, the neighbor off to the left will, see it. And the neighbor off to the right won't see it, and all the neighbors down the street. I'm at the end of the street in a cul-de-sac, and surrounded with, like 45 to 65-foot trees.
Yeah, that ought to work out well for you. I've got neighbors behind me and off to both sides and across the street. The neighbor, I shouldn't really say off to the right, because the property off to the right has been vacant for a while. There's people that own it, and they own a four-family that's across the road here. But the house has been empty for some time, so I don't have to worry about them. And then I've got two new neighbors, the one behind me and the one off to the left. And the one behind me, just last week when I was cutting 2 weeks ago, when we took some of those big tree limbs down to make room for the tower and stuff, he was asking me, because I was out back and I was playing with the 40-meter vertical on a weekend, and just case in point there. He's like, you do amateur radio? I was like, yeah, why? I'm not bothering you with anything, am I? And he's like, oh, no, I don't, you're not bothering me. I'm just kind of curious. My dad used to do that stuff, so that worked out, and he knows what it is, so that's kind of a plus. And the guy off to the other side, on the right side of me, he's seen me out there pulling wires through trees and stuff too, and I don't think he's never asked or never said anything, and I've never brought it up. But my goal is, when I get the tower up, I will keep the wire antennas up for a couple weeks, leave the tower up, and not attach the feed line. Not bring it inside the house, just so it's outside. So the first time I get a complaint saying, well, ever since you put that tower up there, you're getting into my TVs and everything else, I'll go, well, that's funny, because the feed line's not even attached.
I was thinking about putting up the tower and not hooking up the antennas for like a couple months just to see the experiment, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a good experiment. But, you, like me, I'm sure, once that tower goes up, John, you're going to find that really hard not to do.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's why I was thinking I'll put the tower up and get the elevator on it, you know? But not dig the trench for the PVC. That's what my cables are going to run in. And then work on the trench for the PVC while the tower's up and the cement is matured already, but I'll pretend it could use some more time. And I'll run that cabling, and that'll take me a while. And then, I'll have both ends, capped and the connectors on there, and then I'll be ready to hook up. Then I'll go like, yeah, but, and not before then. I don't know, because I'll tell you, I've never had a tower, and I'm pretty laid back when it comes to getting certain projects done. I've noticed that. I know it'll be good when it's done, and I don't rush it. I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't load the elevator until end of May or something like that. But I want to get it done by end of May because the heat starts coming on in June.
Yeah, I'm thinking early April, mid-April is when I'm going to start mine. A buddy's got a small backhoe that we can get between. We can actually get it underneath the carport and through one part of the fence. So that'll make matters of getting the hole dug nice and easy.
Yeah, you're going to have that. I've got a guy with a power auger. He's going to just run that thing down 2 feet at a time, power auger the square, and remove the dirt. And I have a stream in the back, okay, that goes down about 6.5 feet. It's a pretty decent cut in the soil. It goes along the back edge of my property. It's mine. And we can just run the dirt back there and slide it down the bank, along the bank. I have about 100-foot section of it. So dirt removal's no problem, thank goodness. Getting the cement back there is going to be very interesting. The expensive way is to pump it. A cheaper way is to get a skid of bags. I have some laborers that do my yard, and they will do anything. And I may have them mix and pour.
Yeah, just make sure that you got it down in there that it's nice and level before they start on it. I'm not going to have a problem getting the cement in here and get a truck right up into the driveway, and then with the extensions, they'll be able to get right to where the hole is going to be, so that won't be a problem. That'll actually be that'll actually be easy. My biggest concern with me is I got to get the damn power company to move the one power line that runs diagonally through my backyard to the house next to me. I got to find a way to get them to move that. And a few years ago when I mentioned it to them, they said, the only way that they'll probably ever move that thing is if you get a permit for a pool. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to file a permit for a pool, and then I'll never get a pool, but that'll give them an excuse to have to move that damn power line.
Oh, that's kind of smart. I like that. Yeah, I'm not even getting a permit because we're allowed to set up to 65 feet without a permit, as I understand it, in my zone. And now, I'm not mentioning to anyone that I'm going to have 12 feet of, 12 or 13 feet of mast coming above the elevator, that'll hold the antennas. So I don't think I'll have any problem with that because it's on an elevator. When they come, they won't come, but if they come, they can measure the thing. And if they got a complaint, I can always take one section off.
Yeah, I don't have to do a permit here either. The only thing I have to get a permit for would be to put a pole in the backyard. So if that's what it's going to take me to get them to move that power line, then I'll do it. It'll be well worth it. I don't particularly care for where that thing is. And I don't know why they ever did it that way to begin with, because they could have run it along the back over the fencing where the house behind me already comes off of, and they could have run it that way and then back over across the yard. But instead, they took the short route, which was diagonally through my backyard, which really sucks.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes they're not thinking.
Yeah, if I can get them to move it, and that'll get it further away from the antennas and everything else. That may be kind of another benefit as well, because maybe a little less noise that I get in there too. I sometimes on 20 meters they inject some of the signal stuff where they do the meter readings and stuff through the power lines here. And every once in a while on 20 meters when they run that, I see it and I hear it. Sometimes it's worse than others. 90% of the time I can pretty well get rid of all of it. But sometimes if it's wet or damp out and they start doing that, I can't get rid of it completely. And sometimes it's annoying on really weak signals because you got that damn kind of a buzzy sound in the background that it kind of sounds like a plasma. If you've seen the waterfall displays with a neighbor with a plasma TV or a plasma cutter going, it's that kind of sound to it. It's really nasty.
Oh, really? Okay. Plasma cutter. Trying to think the last time I heard one of those, but it doesn't sound good.
No, but here on 40, it's quiet. I mean, I don't know if you're still listening to it. It's pretty quiet here on 40.
Oh, right now I'm about S2 to S3. It's very quiet.
Yeah, I'm running about an S5, S6, but some of that is just the Ben, the Ben reading with the SDR picking up the Ben noise from the FPGAs, and then when you go out wider, the noise level comes up as well too. But I guess they say on these on my particular model to get an actual noise reading, true noise reading, that you should run it, I think, at, what was it, 500 on the high side, and that'll give you an actual noise reading, because that dumps some of the bend noise and you don't get that mixed in there with it.
Oh, okay. Okay, now what I found for a truly accurate reading, I thought, was to narrow the bandwidth quite a bit, and that many times that floating reading on the estimator is due to the averaging of the entire noise in the passband.
Right. Plus, you've got noise with your bends and your FPGA as well.
Yeah. And excuse my yawn there. Wow, I've been up since about 4:30. Yeah, when you go to about 100 hertz, and I'll click on CW, and I'll have it on the 100 hertz filter. you get an accurate reading, both on the pan adapter, the S meter, and the noise reading. And that's just something characteristic of the SDR. You open it up, and what you're talking about, the bin noise, as you call it there, and all the rest gets averaged in. And it's not really a true reading of your noise floor. All S meters are a little suspect, but they get accurate as you approach zero, or S9, in other words. As you approach S9, like S7 to 20 over, 30 over is pretty accurate.
Yeah, and you hit it. I mean, it's typical of the SDRs, the way they're designed. And I think yours is oh shoot, now I just forgot what that is. Never mind. I just went completely mind blank on what I was gonna ask you if the Apache does, but I'm pretty sure it does. I'm pretty sure it's set the same way. And then the other thing, and I'm sure you've noticed this with your SDR, is if you do run a preamp, it doesn't change the signal reading, and it shouldn't. The only thing it should do is bring the signal above the noise, but it should not change the actual S meter reading. You know, and I see guys do this all the time. You know, especially on 20 meters, where they'll run a preamp and they'll tell a guy he's 20 or 30 over, and then you ask him to turn the preamp off, and the guy's, you know, an S7 or an S8. Well, ideally, truly, the guy's an S7 or an S8. It should not change. You bringing the preamp into play should not change the actual S meter reading. It should stay the same. And on your SDR and my SDR, that is the case. It doesn't matter how much preamp you run. The signal stays the same because it's at, you know, it's right there at the terminal.
Yes, it's at the antenna terminal, so it's the amount of microvolts of signal that the input of the receiver is getting, and that doesn't change if you use a preamp. That's right. So I agree with that. And I got fooled in 2005 when I got my first SDR. It was an SDR 1000 from Flex, and I clicked that preamp, and nothing changed. I go, huh?
Yeah, and that caught me the same way with the 3000. The first time I turned it on was like, well, that's weird. The S meter didn't change, but I certainly do hear the guy better.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Oh yeah. So I'm so comfortable with SDRs, and I find them very easy actually. The only thing that people should worry about is they should have a friend when it's first configured. And it really doesn't take very long. I've helped people configure Anons. It's about a half hour. And then you're off and running. Everything's on the front panel. Everything's on the GUI, as we call it, the graphical user interface. And there's not a lot of thinking. There's no menus you have to run to make any of these changes, you know, in compression or whatever. Bandwidths, compression, yeah. There, you might, if you want to change the EQ, that's right on the GUI though, the equalizer. You just click on equalizer or whatever. But I find them really easy to operate. I had a 5000, an FTDX 5000 lent to me for 2 weeks, and man, that seemed complicated.
Well, it's like dumpster diving. You gotta go through the whole menu diving thing. You gotta click one menu, Then in that menu, click another menu, then click a sub menu, then you get to, the stuff that you want to change, and then you got to click another one to change it. I hate that. It's nice, like you said. Everything's right out there in the open. It's all right in front of you, and everything's easy to find. The first the first 5 minutes after I had that 3000, the first SDR rig, the first SDR transmitter that I had, I never looked. I never looked for a knob. The only knob on it was the power button, the same as you got now, and the same as I am on the 6400. Obviously on the M models, you've got the knobs and the display on the front of those, but on the standard model like I'm using, it's just a power switch. That's it. And I've never reached for anything else. I've never caught myself reaching for anything else. It's always just been kind of natural with the mouse in one hand and a keyboard in the other, and it's certainly a lot faster and quicker to change a setting.
Yeah, and I've got one extra thing for the hardware people. I like tuning, and I like changing my volume level on my hardware interface. And I can set the RF drive level and the tune button. So I tune up the linear. Those are the four things I use the most on my hardware interface, although I have everything programmed. I can't remember half the switches because I never use them. But it's a Hercules MP3 with two huge knobs for VFO A and B, 3 sliders, which I chose to do volume, code speed, and RF, AGC gain. Yeah, those 3 sliders. Then it also has 8 encoders. They're like potentiometers. And 24 push buttons. And they're all programmed to the rig. So I can sit back in the chair if I want and hold this 7 by 10 inch hardware interface and run the whole rig like a hardware rig. Over?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. The Hercules, the DJ Play. There's a few other ones that guys were using for setting up those, and that stuff's easy to set up too. Just the piece of software that you use to communicate with the rig between it and the Hercules, and you're off and running. It's all pretty much point and click at that point again too.
Yeah, the Anon has it in it. The software is in it, so it's part of the package.
Yeah, that was something that they added to the to Power SDR. Although I think Ken's version of Power SDR for the Flex guys has that in it now as well. If I remember correctly, that was added to it along with some of the other stuff, like the call sign overlays and things like that now, which I find on the Smart SDR, the call sign overlay thing is really nice. For the guys that want to work DX or whatever, that comes in really handy because you can just look across there and at the pan adapter, and the call signs are popped up on top of it, where the guys are, and you click and go, and you're off and running. That's like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah, isn't that? I'm not a DXer, but I can appreciate what you're saying. A lot of people are DXers. They like the idea of talking to a remote location. I talk to Australians in New Zealand. I talk to the United Kingdom countries because I can have a conversation. They have a grasp of the English language. A lot of the other stations I talk to are, I tip my hat to them. They're trying. But they can't really have a conversation in English, and I can't converse in their language. Like, the reason I have a respect is that they are capable of 1, 2, or 3 languages, a lot of these folks. I only know one.
Yeah. I find all of it interesting. I do the DX stuff. I do the contest stuff. I do the reg choose stuff. I get in here with you on just one-on-ones, and, if somebody else jumps in, we keep going. I find all of it interesting. The digital stuff, yeah, it's all of that is interesting to me. It's just all part of the hobby, and it's hard in this hobby. It would be hard pressed if you have any interest in it at all. Hard pressed not to find something that really sticks out to you.
Well, yeah, exactly. And sometimes I'll DX just because I felt like it. Sometimes on 20 meters, maybe 17. Those are the 2 bands. And I might try to whack a few on CW on 40. And just to do it. But usually if I do CW, it's for rag chew. I stay with the person and we have a conversation. Takes more work and it's slower. I know some people can't stand CW. But I grew up on it, so it's part of me, it's part of my makeup. And I don't expect anyone else to learn it. I really don't. I think what's most important to me is respect. More than anything else, respect for your fellow operator and for proper operating procedures. And then the rest you just figure out on your own.
Yep, I agree. The respect thing's got to be the first thing there, though. And you and I, we run wider bandwidths than most guys do. But when the band starts getting crowded, you narrow it up some and go on. I mean, that's one respect thing of it. I've never come in intentionally running 4 or 5K. If I know there's somebody down below me, or above me, depending on whatever mode. But what it does annoy me is the guys that say you and I, we've been here now for what, half an hour or so, maybe a little longer, and we're both running. I think we're both running about 35 on the high side, maybe a little bit more. But what'll aggravate me is the guy that decides, okay, here's John and Rick at 174. They're running, let's just say 4kc of transmit bandwidth, and okay, I'm gonna park myself at 171.5. And then they're gonna come up and complain. Well, that to me is aggravating because it's not the fact that we're splattering. It's not the fact that we're running wide. It's the fact that you've just moved yourself into our transmit passband. You've just moved your receiver in our passband. That's not our fault.
Oh no! I had one guy. I'm on 3.3. Just wait a second. I had one guy come in once. This only happened once. And he goes, "You're too wide." I go, "No, let's see. Let me look at my pan adapter here." And I said, "No, I'm 3.5 kilohertz, and the edges are sharp. So, that's not a problem." I told him I've seen people with 2.8 kilohertz filters that overdrive their system, and they got 2 kilocycles each side of their passband. They're about 7 kilohertz wide, and that's okay because he's got a 2.8 kilohertz filter, and it's not okay. But here we are running a 3.5 clean, and they're worried about it. So I just don't respond to that very well. I don't give anybody any trouble, though. Here we're back at 3.5. I'm saving my profiles. I'm creating profiles as we speak. Let me create another one. I'm going to make a 4K profile. I just run it up to 4K here and save it. And we're going to save this. And that's 4K. And I make 5K and 6K also. And those are for AM. And then I just select between them 2.9, 3, 3.3. Right now I'm at 5 because I'm creating these profiles. And you got to open your filter up to create the profile. Okay, and that's 6. And we'll save that. And okay, we saved that one. Now I've gone back to 3.5. We're back to normal. I have now a whole fist load of filters between 2.9 and 6 kilohertz.
Yeah, I kind of moved the receiver out as you were doing that too. So I don't know if you're still watching, but if you want to go and play back, you can do that and watch it fill it up. Watch it fill the pan adapter up as you're widening it out. It sounds really good. It sounded, the big jump there that I noticed was when you went from 3.3 to 4. That was a big jump. You brought the high end up quite a bit. The fidelity was really nice at 4. I'm at 3.5 roughly now, so I've got them set up, I think, to go up to. Well, there's one group I get in with down on 75, and it's not untypical for us down there to run, as long as there's nobody down below us, to run 7 or 8K down there. And some of the audio down there is really, really nice. It gets really nice. And the same thing when you go to AM, it's really nice to be able to widen that out. Run 8K or 10K of audio, 5K either side or 10K either side if you want to go out to 20K, as long as nobody's near you and the bands are nice and quiet. Man, it's something to hear.
Yeah, like right now. There's nobody on the band. There's somebody above us by about 6 or 7K, and nothing below us for 15K. So what would it matter? You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter at all. But yeah, when we fill up later on, I'll switch to the 3 kilohertz or the 2.9, and everybody's copacetic. But if I see there's 4 kilohertz below me, we're lower sideband. I'm on 68, and the next station's on 64. I run 3.5 then, of course. And I know some people that just always run 4. And I don't mind that, as long as we're not hitting anybody. It's okay. Oh, my goodness. Now, it's 11:06. Actually, we've been talking probably more than an hour. Over?
Yeah, when you said 11:06, was thinking in my head, yeah, it's probably been about an hour and 20 minutes, maybe an hour and a half. Hey, John, I'm curious about something. Can you open your receiver to about 55 or so?
Well, 6K I've got set in it.
Okay, that's fine. Hold on a second. All right, K2YN N8 SDR. Well, let's see. Let me bring this up a little bit more here. Okay. There's 5550. Just call it 55 or yeah, 5500 on the top side. Is that a big change from the 3.5 that we were running?
Well, of course, yes. There's more sibilance, and your energy goes up to 5,500, and it's just that much nicer if you like that, and I don't mind that. But I like the 3.5. I'm very comfortable with that. And yes, 4 is probably the best compromise of all the bandwidths for getting that chunk of highs that really sound good. And then the rest of it's sort of icing on the cake.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so as well. I think that 4K mark is the target mark. As long as there's nobody above you or below you to complain about it. All right, hey, I'm gonna let you go. Maybe you'll get a little enthusiasm to go outside and drill some holes, crawl underneath the house, and pull that cabling through there. And maybe I'll catch you a little bit later on this afternoon or this evening for a little while. I'm gonna run downstairs. I've been up early too. Been up since about 4:30, about the same time you did, about 4:15 actually. I'm gonna run downstairs. I think I'm gonna I'm gonna warm up some chili that I made the other night. Yeah, I'm gonna have that. Seems fitting on a nice cool day up this way. So I'm gonna go down there and do that, and then take care of a few things outside. And I'll catch you maybe back in here later on this evening, John, for a while. Really nice talking with you. Enjoyed the QSO, and I'll save this one out there. This will be a good one to save for going through the bandwidths and why us guys that run the wider bandwidth like to do it, and how we do respect if there is somebody down or above or below us before we actually start. So I'm glad you made those comments as well. Take care, John. Have a great day, and I will catch up with you probably later on this evening. K2YN and 8SDR.
Okay, very good there, Rick. And I'm just listening to myself on your streaming, and that's okay. But I just took the headphones off. I like to listen for a moment. This has been a lot of fun, very relaxing, at this point in the day on the band, because it's so kind of empty. And you're booming in, you're coming in 10 to 20 over consistently. And I'm sure a lot of other stations would too. The conditions seem pretty good and quiet. But time just flew by. Next thing you know, it's been an hour and a half. So anyway, I'll let you go. You get the chili. I'm going to go up and get Thai chicken. I made some of that and froze it. And I thawed it out yesterday. So that's my lunch. And peppers and onions and chicken and in a yellow curry mix. And mushrooms too. So I don't know if you like them. 73s for now. We'll catch you later today, Rick. N8SDR. Going to the kitchen. This is K2YN doing the same. Bye-bye, Rick.
See you later, John. Yeah, Thai chicken sounds really good. And I love mushrooms. You can never go wrong with mushrooms unless they're poisonous mushrooms. So take care. I'll catch up with you a little bit later on. And maybe we'll pick this conversation back up, or you never know what you and I will get into. See you later, John. K2YN and 8SDR.
So long, Rick. K2YN QRT.